Hello there, this is Bernd speaking. I will show you now the new features of Juice Vaadin 2.0. I have set up a small example project that I will push on GitHub. You will find the sources in the links. I will put it up on vaadin.com. Now, you see here that this is a application that was created from the Maven archetype Vaadin application. And what I did change was I changed the Vaadin servlet to be Juice Vaadin servlet, of course. I added a packages to scan annotation. What does that mean so far? So, of course, we need a Juice Vaadin servlet in order to use Juice, and we need to tell Juice where to look for UIs, where to look for views, for view change listeners, for bootstrap handlers, for what else? Let me check. For bootstrap listeners, for request handlers and modules. But first of all, of course, for UIs, and so we give that annotation. You can either give that annotation to your Juice Vaadin servlet, or you configure packages to scan in your web XML. That's also possible. You need an entry like this, packages to scan, and then you can give a comma or colon separated list of your packages that you want to scan. But it's way easier, of course, this way. Packages to scan de bhub. And then we have a UI that is in that package, so it will be found. And the UI has an annotation that says Juice UI. That is basically all we need. It would work like this also, but then we would just see an empty UI. So in Juice UI you can configure also the content of your UI and your view container. So that is a feature that is probably new to most people. Let's look at the content first. Content is just a composite, so a class that doesn't have its own HTML rendered. It just wraps around other classes. In this case, it wraps around a vertical layout, so it is a vertical layout containing something that is a header and something that is a view container, and the view container will have a expand ratio of 1, so it will try to give the view container as much space as possible. Let's look at the view container. Pretty much nothing we see here. It's just a panel that is set to full size, and it's in UI scope. Let's keep UI scope in the back of our heads for now. And also we do have a header, and in the header we see that's a horizontal layout, what one would expect, and it's also in UI scope. And what happens here is that I inject in the header a map of strings to classes that extend or implement view, and I annotate it with navigable view classes. That is a annotation from Juice Vaadin, and it says here a field or constructor parameter that is being injected and is either a set of classes that extend view, or a map of such classes that map strings to view. And it will give you a set or map of all classes, of all view classes that you can currently navigate to. For example, it is possible that you have views that you can just navigate to because they belong to a different UI. We will see how that works later on. It's done with the for UI annotation. For now, just here notice that we have this map injected here, and we set the width to 100%. We iterate over the key set, over the keys in that map, and we say this is a UI fragment. We add a button to our horizontal layout that we have here, and we say that button has a text navigate to and then the UI fragment, and it will navigate to the UI fragment on click. All right, what else is here in my UI? We also have a view container, and that is the my view container that is also being injected in the content. So we instruct the navigator to use the my view container class as the place where views should be displayed. Let's see which views we have here. There are two. One is the start view, which is a panel, and it has a start view content. Don't get confused here. Start view content is an interface, but that should not confuse you right now. Let's just say that what will be injected here is the default start view content, which is a label that says I am the default start view content. All right, I have it up and running. Let's see how it, oh, I'm sorry. One thing I didn't mention is why is that view the start, is that the start view, because it has a juice view annotation here that has the empty string, so it will be registered under the navigator with the empty string. And here we also have a for UI annotation. Let's throw that away for a moment. It doesn't make any difference here because we just have one UI. All right, so there is another view that is the another view, and here we have the annotation juice view on it with another view. So how will that look like? Let's load it again. Now we see here I am the default start view content, so obviously it did work that we had injected the start view content, and then it seemed to pick this one, and it said I am the default start view content. And in another view that was simpler, it just extends label, and I said I am another view. So here we have the button, navigate to another view, and then we have the label. Now, what else do we have here that was the easier stuff? Let's see, I also do have a view change listener that will log all the view changes here to the console. Let's see if that works. Changing view to, here I reloaded the same page, and I opened the default view 2 times, then I moved change to another view. Let's do it again. There was no change. And here, changing view 2. All right, so the view change listener, it's also unnecessary, does work here too. It is applied, it is added to the navigator because it is in the package that we scan. We could also put it in a sub package of it, of de bhop, and it would still be added because this packages to scan will also look for sub packages of de bhop. All right, that were, I would say, the main features, but we have some cool stuff that was being included. One is the controller annotation, because in a lot of setups where you would want to use some sort of MVP or whatever MV pattern, you always have the problem that your controllers will not be part of the object graph that is needed for the UI to be created. So when your UI is being created by Juice or Spring or whatever, your DI framework will basically look up all the classes that are necessary for your UI to be created, that you inject into your UI, and it will create them and inject them into each other and create everything necessary and create your UI, and then you're good to go. However, if you have a controller is not necessary usually to be included, or it's not necessary for the construction of your UI. You need to do some tricks, like you inject all your controllers into your UI, but you don't use them, and you give them some suppress warnings, unused annotation or something like that. That's sort of ugly, I would argue. So what you can do here is you add a controller that says that had a controller annotation, and in the controller annotation you state on which other component this controller should be created. So when a start view was created, the controller, my start view controller, will be created too, and it can have the start view injected in the constructor. Just make sure you use a provider, otherwise it won't work. It also works with all sorts. You can with all sorts of components. You can even say this is a controller for my UI class, so it will create it every time you create a new my UI class. But you don't need to have the my UI class in here. All right. What else? We have modules. You can also just put any module in your package that is being scanned here, and it will be loaded and will be able to add or change bindings like I do here. And we do have some more obscure features on first look. Let's see. That is import and override bindings. These are import and override bindings are mostly used if you have some sort of add-on system. The easier thing to understand is probably import, because import, some of you may know it from Spring, and override bindings. That means on some occasions you need to tell Juice that you are now about to override some bindings, and that's okay, because usually if you have two modules that try to provide bindings for the same class, for the same type, then problem is that Juice will throw an exception. So you need to tell Juice that now it is okay. I know this had been bound before this class. I want to override this binding with another implementation. So, and I said it is usable in add-ons. If you have add-ons, so what would an add-on be? For example, I have, as you have seen here, a start view, and the start view gets injected an interface called start view content. Start view content itself is just any component, and here we have two different implementations for it. This is the default implementation that we have seen. I am the default start view content, and it's a label. So obviously what we see here. And now I can change that to something else simply by adding an annotation here, and that annotation says enable custom start view content. Let's see if it worked. I am the default start view content. I am the default start view content. It's up already. Now it says I am the custom start view content. How did I do that with one annotation? Well, let's look at the annotation. Here is an import annotation on the annotation itself. So it will import my add-on module. Let's see what that does. And it will bind the content of it will bind the start view content interface to a custom implementation. So, and here we see the override bindings annotation, because we want to tell JUice we know this had been called before to something else, but now we want to override it with our custom implementation. And the custom implementation is just another label that says I am the custom start view content. Now, what I can also do is I can, of course, parameterize the annotation, and I could do it like this. I could say class question mark extends start view content, the value here, and now I take this as a constructor parameter for the add-on module, and I say take it, we save it here, the annotation, or let's just save the class, rename it to yeah, I want to do that. Implementation class. Okay, and we bind it to the implementation class. And of course, now we need to call it here, and we say start view content custom. That's not public. Yeah. Oh, let's just put a debug a breakpoint here. All right, 3 breakpoints. One is in my module, one is in my add-on module, or 2 are in my add-on module. Let's see if it works. All right. Of course, the add-on module is created first, and it has injected the annotation. And here we say, let's see what it is, implementation class, start view content custom, like we said here. Okay, and what comes next? My module is being called, and it binds start view content to the default start view content. Then my add-on module is being called, and it has the override binding, so it's not a problem to override the binding of that we have seen before, start view content, and now we bind it to the implementation class here, which is start view content custom. And voila. What else do we have here then? Well, of course, the scopes, like UI scope, Vaadin session scope, view scope. These are the same scopes that Spring uses. This is a UI scope means only if you annotate something with UI scope, you will have one instance per UI. If you annotate something with a Vaadin session scope, you will have one instance per Vaadin session. If you annotate it with view scope, you will have one instance per view. And the one thing we have not talked about yet is for UI. So you can add this for UI annotation to view change listeners or views or UIs. And you can restrict UIs and view change listeners and views to certain UIs. So that, for example, if you have two UIs in your application, and one of them is the actual application and the other one is like an admin application for it, then you probably don't want the views of your admin application in your main application. And so what you do is you add a for UI annotation on your view like this, and then it's only for my UI. In this case, I only have one UI, so you will never see any difference from it, but here now you see why it is called navigable view classes, because if it will only contains view classes that are being navigable. So if you have a view but it's not navigable from your UI that your header is attached to, it will not show up in this map that is being injected here. Basically, a view or anything that has a for UI annotation with a UI that is not the current UI will not be visible for your UI. You just won't see it. Won't make any difference to your UI. And that's, I guess, it. Did I miss something? I hope not. Yeah, this packages to scan, I hope I said it before, I'm not quite sure. With this packages to scan, this is what you start with. You give in a one or more packages here, and these packages will be scanned. In these packages, all the UIs will be set up, all the views will be available, all the view change listeners will be set up, bootstrap listeners if you want to change the initial HTML that is being delivered to your client's browser, and request handlers, and of course modules. Like I have a module here, and we have seen that it is is being created without any need for any annotations here. It's just because it is in this package. I could also put it in a sub package like the add-on package that I have here, which is empty package powered, but it would still work. Now I guess that's it. I hope you I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense for you, and I hope you like the new features that I have put in here. It's also, I reworked a lot of stuff, and I like the code a lot more now. I think it's pretty lean, pretty fast forward. I enjoy the code a lot. I hope you enjoy this add-on. If you do so, you could maybe do me a favor and give it a good rating. That would be nice. Or if you think there is something that is missing in here, then you can either open up an issue on GitHub, or if you like to, you can just give me a pull request for it. I'm always glad for that. Thank you for listening so far. Enjoy this add-on and have fun with it.